KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's time for Montana's only daily sports talk show, Nuanez Now. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
I like football!
Now here's your host, Coulter Nuanez.
Yo, what's up, Montana? Welcome in. 102.9 ESPN Radio. It's Nuanez Now coming your way here for the next 2 hours like we do each 4 to 6 p.m. each Monday through Friday on 102.9 FM around Western Montana, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. You can also stream us live on YouTube and Facebook and Twitch. I'm Coulter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Appreciate you for hanging today. Fun show coming your way. We're going to keep on answering your questions. Yesterday, we got a great inquiry about the all-time Mount Rushmore for Grizz football. So I hashed that out a little bit, give you a review of what we answered yesterday. I figured in the name of equity and also summertime content, we'll do the Bobcat side of things here. We're probably going to actually inquire about this with a couple other of our head analysts here at ESPN as well, so that's coming up later on this week. But today, we'll review the Grizz, talk more about the Cats, and talk about a couple sort of cool anniversaries that are coming up as well. It's the 25th anniversary of the 2001 national champions from Montana. It is the 40th anniversary of both Washington Grizzly Stadium and the creation of number 37 for the Grizz. So certainly a lot of things to remember, sort of the origin points of as time continues to march on. We'll also have our latest Treasure State Stars. We're going to do a Big Sky Conference outdoor track and field style, championship style Treasure State Stars. There are several top contenders as the Grizz and the Cats head to the Big Sky Conference Outdoor Championships. That has been true very often over the last 10 or 15 years for the Cats. That has not been as true lately for the Grizz, but the Grizz actually have as many, if not more, contenders than Montana State in terms of actual true championship leaders, number one or number two seeds in their respective events. I think it could be a landmark weekend for the Grizz track team. Doug Fraley's done a heck of a job of building that thing up, no question. We'll also have some high school track and field marks, some of the best of the weekend, and that's all here just in hour number one. Hour number two, more football coming your way. Brett Myers, he's the new offensive line coach for the Grizz, but he is a guy that's been around the Big Sky Conference for longer than I've been alive. He has not consistently since 1982 been in the Big Sky, but he spent 28 of the last 45 years coaching in the Big Sky Conference. So he's got plenty of experience. He is a veteran among veterans in the coaching business, and he is a new offensive line coach for the Grizz. Love talking to Coach Myers and just sort of picking his brain about his philosophies about offensive line development. And I think that's it's been a key storyline for Grizz football. It's a key storyline for every football team. What are we talking about? I mean, that's low-hanging fruit, right? It all starts up front. It's cliche because it's true. But also, the fact of the matter is that when Montana won national championships in 1995 and 2001, they had among the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the country. They've been good, but not best of the country type of good over the last, I don't know, let's call it 15 to 20 years. I'd say their last truly great offensive line was that 2007, 2008, 2009 team that had players like Colin Dow, Levi Horn, J.D. Quinn, Brent Russum, some really great, Taryn Hillsland, some all Big Sky type of talents, and several guys that got, had chances in the NFL. It's been a little while since they've had that sort of prowess up front. We'll see if Brett Myers can change that. I certainly think that he has a pretty tried and true formula when it comes to developing guys. He's most recently been at Weber State, spent the last 12 years there at Weber, had some excellent offensive lines. He's coached 16 first-team All-Big Sky players over those 28 seasons in the Big Sky. He's coached 7 different All-Americans, so he knows how to help build them up. What sort of impact can he have on the Grizz? That's coming up about 5 o'clock. And then about 5:30, we'll keep on rolling on the NBA. I'm sort of done giving my penance on why. First of all, coming to the middle and expressing to you why I understand maybe if you are in the camp where you don't like the NBA. And we had a pretty long conversation about sort of validating and invalidating all of the different reasons why you could maybe not be as into professional basketball as maybe you once were. That was sort of the entry point to the conversation is why is the NBA not producing as many household names as it used to? And I think that we've sort of hashed that out. If you have more feedback, keep them coming in, and we'll sort of reignite the conversation. But for now, at 5:30, we're just going to talk about what's going on in the here and now. Oklahoma City into the Western Conference Finals, the New York Knicks into the Eastern Conference Finals. I think both those were pretty predicted. I think if you were to pencil out who do you think is going to play for the Eastern Conference in the Eastern Conference Finals for the Eastern Conference title, I think you probably would have said in the preseason New York and Boston. Well, Detroit sort of swooped in and stole the show during the regular season. The Cavs are pushing them, though, after last night's win. That series is 2-2. I think if you were predicting the Western Conference Finals in the preseason, you probably would have said Oklahoma City versus the Field. I know some people were a little bit high on Houston after their acquisition of Kevin Durant. Others were high on Minnesota. They had sort of an up and down regular season. A lot of people were sort of tepidly but optimistic about the San Antonio Spurs. Were they ready yet? That was the biggest sort of precursor. It looks like the Spurs are probably the top contender in the West, but I think Minnesota is going to have something to say about that. That series is tied 2-2, so it's basically a best of three coming down the stretch as we go into Game 5 tonight. So we'll have some NBA talk for you and just give you sort of the lay of the land of the two out of the four series that remain alive. Also, if we get a chance today, we'll talk some golf. We're going to talk golf later on this week with both Brooks Nuanez and Ryan Tutel, because somehow, some way, the PGA Championship is coming up this weekend. This always breaks my brain because forever, I've always really loved golf. My dad really was into golf, and we golfed a lot together. We liked watching golf together, especially the majors. So I have a lot of good memories of my late father kicking it, watching golf. And so then I always watched all the majors when I was a kid. I mean, it was very rare that I missed Sunday at a major. So you just get into the swing of things, right? The Masters sort of kicks off spring. It kicks off golf season. There's so much pageantry to it all. And then you roll, it used to be, into the U.S. Open, which is like the greatest test in golf, then into the British Open, which is sort of the most funky and sometimes outside the box version of golf, especially for a lot of the American players. And then you'd always culminate with the PGA Championship. Well, they've moved in. The PGA Championship used to be in August. Now it's all the way up in May. So it's just been an adjustment to sort of get used to. Like it always just sort of comes out of nowhere, which is interesting. But I do think it's going to be a fun PGA Championship. I mean, I think all these majors are awesome because I just think there's so many contenders. I don't know if there's a ton of. I mean, Scottie Scheffler is the number one player in the world. Rory McIlroy, though, is playing great golf. But then you have just a whole group of like 20 to 25 other guys that if anybody rises up and plays well that day, that week, they can absolutely be in contention. So we'll get to some PGA Championship a little bit later on this week for sure, but maybe today if we have a little bit of time at the end of the show. So that's what's coming up. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio. Need a roll-off box for your construction project? Is delayed service on your roll-off box slowing down your construction? Call Grizzly Disposal. Get your roll-off box within 24 hours. Don't wait days or even weeks for construction roll-off boxes. Grizzly Disposal has them in stock. They can get them to you fast. Visit grizzlydisposal.com or call 406-541-7171. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, and the only bears that should be in your garbage. Keep the texts coming in. First of all, you're going to want to remember this number because we're going to give you a chance to win free Taglieri Deli, 406-888-1029. That's coming up about 4:45, so keep that number in the Rolodex, 888-1029. But also, text us and let us know what you want us to talk about. Hey, let's just combine it, right? Well, let's just start taking entries right now for Tag Tuesday. You want $25 to Taglieri? We got you. What you have to do, though, is you got to tell me some subject matters. Give me questions, comments, concerns, talking points. What do you want us to talk about here on Nuanez Now? Any and all inquiries will get you entered in to win Taglieri from Tag Deli here in Missoula. 2 locations, one on the corner of Beckwith and Higgins, the other in the Sawmill District on Wyoming. You can always order online, make it easy. They'll have the sandwiches ready for you right there in the cooler. You don't even have to do anything. Just go in, pick them up, be on your way. Every Tuesday, we give you a chance to win $25, so let us know what you want us to talk about. 406-888-1029. Yesterday, good inquiry from a listener asking about the Mount Rushmore of Grizz football greats. I thought that the way that this started out, I thought it was pretty... Well, first of all, I decided to delineate between coaches and players, right? I did a Mount Rushmore of coaches. That included, I think, unquestionably, Don Reed, 95 National Championship. Joe Glenn, 2001 National Championship. I think Bobby Houck, even though he doesn't have a national championship, 15 seasons, 8 Big Sky titles, over 100 wins. He's the all-time leading winner in the history of the Big Sky Conference, both in total and conference victories. So pretty hard to leave him off. And then that 4th spot, I sort of went back and forth between Larry Donovan and Mick Dennehy. Dennehy coached one of probably the best Grizz team that didn't win a national championship. That's the 1996 Grizz. Donovan, though, coached the 1982 Grizz when they won the Big Sky Championship. And that, first of all, was the Grizz' first Big Sky Championship since 1969. So that helped build some momentum for the program. That also helped build momentum fundraising-wise, which is then what helped spark the creation of the building of Washington Grizzly Stadium. So I'd say Donovan, actually, even though he had a below 500 record, I think he deserved that. 82 was a pivotal championship in the history of Grizz football, and I think he deserves more credit than maybe he gets. Dennehy, I think the thing that helps him is, again, I think the 96 Grizz are the best Grizz team that didn't win a national championship. But on the other side, that was sort of the peak. Dennehy, the team Dennehy inherited was the best team he coached at Montana. The Grizz were good in the 3 seasons that followed 1996, but they were nowhere near as good as they had been in 1993 through 1996. Dennehy's first year, the Grizz went 14-1. The following year, they went 8-4 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. In 1998, they went 8-4 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. And in 1999, they went 9-3 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. So that was certainly that's sort of hard to overcome. But, you could also argue that Dennehy deserves to be on that Mount Rushmore because he made the playoffs 4 times, and Donovan only made the playoffs once. But would the Grizz become what they would have become if it wasn't for that 82 championship and, of course, the construction of Washington Grizzly Stadium? I don't know. It's certainly an interesting debate. Who do you think's on the Mount Rushmore of Grizz coaches? 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. On my players, I had Dave Dickinson unquestionably. Walter Payton Award winner, 1995 national champion. I don't think anybody listening to this show needs me to explain why Dave Dickinson's on the Mount Rushmore of all-time Grizz. I also had Vince Huntsberger. He was the 2-time Big Sky Player of the Year from Libby, Montana. Got a Heisman vote his senior year. He was the captain of the 2001 Grizz. I also had Thatcher Slay, who's a Whitefish product and was another captain of the 2001 Grizz. And he's probably considered the tone setter, like the emotional leader of that 2001 Grizz team. And then my 4th spot, I sort of waffled between some of the old school guys like Tim Houck or maybe even all the way back to the late 1960s guys like Mike Tillman, who then went on to play in the NFL. You can also consider some of the other guys that had great pro careers like Scott Gregg, who was a 2nd-round draft pick out of Montana, Guy Bingham. You could also talk, Guy Bingham played in the NFL for more than a decade. You could also talk about some of the more modern guys like Lex Hilliard, Chase Reynolds, Mark Mariani, guys that are from Montana that scored a ton of touchdowns for those mid-2000s Grizz. But I ended up settling upon Croy Bierman because I think Bierman had the best combination of college career. He's one of the great pass rushers in the history of the school. He was the Buck Buchanan Award winner, the first ever at Montana, so that was a breakthrough to get the National Defensive Player of the Year award. And then he was a 4th-round draft pick that played in the NFL for a decade. So I think there's a lot of people you can consider for the Mount Rushmore of players for the Grizz, but those are the 4 that I landed upon. Dave Dickinson, Vince Huntsberger, Croy Bierman, and Thatcher Slay. Who do you have on your Grizz? Players Mount Rushmore. Let me know. 406-888-1029. So then when it comes to the Bobcats, This one has to have a little bit more recency bias because Brent Vigen just won a national championship, and that's the first national championship in Montana by either school in 25 years. It's also the first national championship at Montana State in 41 years. So Brent Vigen, even though he's only been the coach at MSU for 5 seasons, and his story is only partially written, it's hard to put a contemporary guy on the Mount Rushmore, but how could you not put Brent Vigen on Mount Rushmore? He's 61-12 at Montana State so far. I mean, the guy's gone undefeated in league play 3 out of the last 4 years. And the other 2 seasons, he's 37-3 in Big Sky Conference games. Went to the championship in year 1, semifinals in year 2, second round in year 3, championship game where he lost again in 2024, and then last year they won the national championship. So Vigen absolutely has to be on there. It's not even a debate. I also think you have to have Sonny Holland on your Bobcat coaches Hall of Fame, Mount Rushmore. Holland has a national championship as a player and a coach, so he could actually maybe be argued to be on the Mount Rushmore for either one. His jersey's retired. A lot of people consider him the greatest Bobcat ever. There's a statue of him out front of the stadium. So that's pretty hard to argue with. But he was the head coach of the 1976 National Championship Bobcats, and that certainly was a team that lives on, right? The history of that team, the fact that they had a bunch of dudes from Montana, including a bunch of dudes from Butte, that really they sort of built the foundation of the program upon. Pretty hard to argue against Sonny Holland. Then the next 2 spots on the Bobcats, though, I think there's probably 3 pretty worthy candidates. Tony Storty was the head coach when the Cats won the national championship in the 50s, and he turned the Bobcats into an NAIA power, and that's what then propelled them in their ability to move up to NCAA, which then they did when they joined the Big Sky Conference in 1963. They were D2 from 1963 to 1978, as was the rest of the Big Sky Conference, because Division I AA did not exist. But the beginning part of the Big Sky era for the Cats was a great one. Jim Sweeney did nothing but win at Montana State in the 60s. Then he handed it off to Sonny Holland, and he did nothing but win in the 70s. He handed it off to Sonny Lubick, and that sort of set the table, even though they had some up and down years between 78 and 84. Sonny Lubick's recruiting during his time as the head coach really set the table then for Montana State's 1984 national championship. But I think that all traces back to Storty, for him putting the groundwork in. I think that's Jim Sweeney, who was the coach in the 60s, Sonny Lubick in the late 70s, and Dave Arnold, who won the national championship in 1984 at Montana State. I think all 3 of those coaches probably owe a lot to Storty. So I'm saying Vigen, Storty, and Holland are all right there. And then the 4th, I think it's between Mike Kramer and Jim Sweeney. Kramer will be a folk hero forever in the realm of Montana State lore, despite the controversial ending to his career at Montana State, because for one simple reason, Mike Kramer put the Bobcats back on the map. Mike Kramer helped the Bobcats snap the streak. The Bobcats were so moribund and downtrodden from the mid-1980s all the way through the early 2000s. Earl Solomson was a total train wreck as the head coach. Cliff Heisel just couldn't get Montana State over the top. Of course, the streak happened, and Montana beat Montana State 16 years in a row. And then Kramer comes in after being at Eastern Washington, and he bottoms it out 0-11 in 2000, but then builds it back up. And by 2002, the Bobcats are winning in Missoula, and all of a sudden now the rivalry since that streak was snapped has been pretty dang even. Montana State a slight edge lately and overall since 2002, but there's not quite nearly the lopsided nature that did exist for the rivalry for, the better part of 2 decades. That certainly gives Kramer a notch, right? But you look at Jim Sweeney, he's the one that guided the Bobcats into the Big Sky Conference era. He won a heck of a lot more than Kramer. Kramer got it rolling the second half, but the Bobcats were always up and down, even though they'd have big wins. There was the season where they beat Colorado in Boulder and then lost to UC Davis the next week. That was sort of the Mike Kramer experience in a nutshell. I love Mike Kramer. He's one of my favorite people I've ever met through this job. But certainly the inconsistencies was one of his trademarks. But he always get up for rivalry games, and he certainly had success the second half of his tenure at Montana State in those rivalry games. Jim Sweeney, though, won 3 Big Sky titles in 5 years and was second one of the other years. Went 31-20 overall, 14-4 in Big Sky Conference play. Led Montana State to the Camellia Bowl in both 1964 and 1966. They won the Camellia Bowl in 1964. And then he parlayed that into becoming the head coach at Washington State. And then he used that to become the head coach at Fresno State. And he had a great career at Fresno. Won 144 games there. Won over 200 games during his college career. So if you're talking about the overall body of work, Jim Sweeney's is better than Mike Kramer's. You also talk about the success, the overall success at MSU. I mean, 3 Big Sky titles in 5 years is pretty dang good. So I think Sweeney's probably the answer. But if you want to put, like if you're talking about people that had an impact on the success that's happening later on, like if Tony Storty deserves a ton of credit for helping build the foundation that then Jim Sweeney and Sonny Holland won with at Montana State, also then you have to give Mike Kramer a ton of credit for sort of paving the way for then what became Rob Ash, Jeff Choate, and Brent Vigen. So I don't know. I think it's sort of a coin flip between Kramer and Sweeney, but I think those other 3, Brent Vigen, Sonny Holland, and Tony Storty, are locked in as the, for sure, 3 of the figureheads on the Montana State Mount Rushmore. What do you think? Let us know, 406-888-1029. Text in from a listener. Love this one. Yes, it's old school, but Jack Swarthout is definitely better than the last 2. So they were saying Jack Swarthout better at Montana than either Larry Donovan or Mick Dennehy. I can listen to that. I can listen to this argument for sure. Swarthout was the head coach of Montana from 1967 to 1975. Led Montana to back-to-back 10-win seasons, 1969 and 1970. The Grizz went undefeated in the Big Sky each of those 2 years, and they played in but lost in the Camellia Bowl. That's what the winner of the Big Sky used to go play in, is the Camellia Bowl. Swarthout was the Big Sky Conference Coach of the Year 1967, 1969, and 1970. He also was the athletic director at Montana during his time as the head coach. He then stepped down as the AD and the football coach in the summer of 1976, returned to his hometown, I guess his sort of claimed hometown of Olympia, Washington. That's where he had gone to high school at. He returned to Olympia and coached there for the next decade. And then I think he just retired. So interesting, because this is sort of in the precursor, like the Big Sky's champion was still going to the bowls, not the playoffs. So maybe that sort of robbed some of those 60s and 70s Grizz and Cat teams, early 70s, 60s and early 70s Grizz and Cat teams from getting maybe the postseason decoration or success that maybe they deserved. But playing in a bowl is pretty cool, I guess. I mean, back then certainly it was. So I can certainly listen to Swarthout for sure. If you're arguing ahead of Mick Dennehy and ahead of Larry Donovan. So I appreciate it. Thanks to that listener. The other part of Swarthout's legacy that's worth noting is he brought in Jack Elway as an assistant coach. Jack Elway, of course, was the father of John Elway. They ran a pretty sophisticated offense, and they also helped start Little Grizz football way back in the day. And I believe John Elway actually played Little Grizz football before then. Jack Elway moved on and moved up, and then, of course, John Elway ended up at Stanford, and they ended up with the Denver Broncos. But pretty interesting that he spent some time as a kid back in the day in Missoula. So certainly that's part of Swarthout's legacy, though, is having Jack Elway on his coaching staff. Well, it's down 129 ESPN Radio. We gave you our Grizz Mount Rushmore for both players and coaches yesterday. We just gave you our Bobcat coaches Mount Rushmore. How about on the players' side? What do you think? 406-888-1029. I think 3 out of the 4 for the players are indisputable. Number 1, Jan Stenerud. I know he's a kicker, but he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was, at one point, the only kicker in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was the most, how do you say, he was the best weapon as a kicker that the NFL had ever seen when he first, in college, first of all. When he made a 59-yard field goal in the rivalry game when he was at Montana State, back when it was unheard of to even kick over 50 yards. I think that was the college record for a moment in time. Stenerud was then nails in the NFL, played for the Kansas City Chiefs, won a Super Bowl. Again, he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So hard to not have that man on your Mount Rushmore. Second, if you're watching on TV, you're watching on the ESPN MT app, this bronze right here is of Bill Kollar. Coach Kollar is known by Coach Kollar now because he was a coach in the NFL for more than 30 years. But Coach Kollar first was a ferocious defensive lineman. He came to Montana State from Ohio. He was as feared as any player the Big Sky had ever seen in the early 1970s. The legend of Bill Kollar sent shockwaves across the Big Sky, right? He was 6'4", 290 pounds, and he ran like a 4.6 40. Then this is back when that was almost impossible for a man that size. Still seems like it should be, but imagine that 50 years ago. Kollar is one of only 2 players ever out of the Big Sky Conference that was drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. He went in the, 20th to the Cincinnati Bengals in the 1975 NFL draft. He was the MVP of the Senior Bowl following his senior year at Montana State. His career was sort of muddled by injuries, but he still played 8 seasons in the NFL, and he had enough football acumen then to turn that into a career. And he's got a Super Bowl ring as a coach for the Denver Broncos. His number is also retired at Montana State. I think it's impossible to leave Bill Kollar off your MSU Mount Rushmore. Third, I think you got to put Troy Anderson on there. I don't think we're ever going to see a career like Troy Anderson's again. For him to be Freshman of the Year in the Big Sky and an All-Conference running back as a freshman, and then turn around and be a first-team All-Conference and first-team All-American all-purpose player as a quarterback, as a sophomore, to then turn around and be a true two-way player who scored double-digit touchdowns and was a starting inside linebacker defensively as a junior, to then turn around and be the National Defensive Player of the Year as a senior and the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year, and then turn around and have the best NFL Combine performance in the history of the conference, especially anybody from Montana, and then become a second-round draft pick who's then a day one surefire starter in the NFL. I still think Troy Anderson is the best pure athlete I've ever seen come out of the state of Montana. I don't think it's close, and I don't know if we'll see something like that again. He might be a once-in-a-lifetime type of guy, or certainly a once-in-a-generation, no question. So I know that there's some parts of his career, because of how sporadically he was used at MSU, and because he was sort of like, he was the man that they put the program on his shoulders to try to help rebuild it, but he was there during a rebuilding time, so maybe didn't have quite the success in the full duration that maybe he deserved. But the fact that he got him to the national championship his senior year, and the fact that he did all the things that he did in such a diverse fashion, impossible to leave him off. And then the fourth spot, there's a ton of candidates. Don Haas was an awesome running back for the Cats in the 1960s. The Iron Tumbleweed, his number is retired, but I have him in the honorable mention category. Kane Ione was a phenomenal player for the Bobcats in those early Mike Kramer days. He was a Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Sky, a 4-time actually, even All-American. They've had a whole bunch of great offensive linemen, guys like Mike Person, guys like John Borchard. There's been a ton of great offensive linemen at MSU. Tommy Mellott, certainly because of how productive he was throwing it and running it as a quarterback. Justin Lamson, he just won a national championship as a quarterback. He's got to be a consideration. But also Travis Lulay, Denarius McGee, those guys are also both memorable quarterbacks. But I went with Mark Fellows as the last spot. Fellows had 20 sacks during Montana State's 1984 national championship season. He was just an unstoppable force off the edge. So what do you think? Were any of those honorable mentions or anybody else? I mean, Dane Fletcher could be in the mix. There's been a lot of there's a whole bunch of guys that are like in that grouping of the fourth guy. That's the same thing for the Grizz, right? You can't go wrong if you go with Mariani or Lex Hilliard or Chase Reynolds or Colt Anderson for the Grizz. For the Cats, I mean, you probably can't go wrong with Tommy Mellott or Kane Ione or Mike Person. But I went with Fellows because I thought he was the best player on that 84 team. Thought that was the biggest factor to their winning their first Division I AA national championship. What do you think of the Mount Rushmores? 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. Call us, text us, let us know. Also let us know what you want us to talk about, and also let us know if you want some Tagliari Deli. Tag Tuesday every Tuesday here on 1029 ESPN Radio. All right, we'll take a break, come back. Talk some anniversaries and talk some athletes to watch when it comes to the Big Sky Outdoor Track and Field Championships. That's all next on the other side. Don't change that down. Keep it right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the uniquely designed and well-equipped 2024 Buick Encore GX with models starting at $28,895. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to demorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Encores and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
It's easy to see why Montana is the treasure state. At the University of Montana, we look inside. We see an old truth with fresh eyes, that Montana's greatest treasure is its people. So whatever tomorrow brings, we meet it the only way we know how, with a mind for making. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
A pair of pole vaulters, one from each side of the rivalry, posted historic marks in Bozeman last weekend. Hello, I am Hayden Smith. The Tom Gage Classic is a regular season finale for the Montana and Montana State track and field teams each spring. And in Bozeman on Friday, Montana's Shaylee McGee and Montana State's Libby Hansen each vaulted 13 feet, 7 1/4 inches. McGee's mark set a Montana all-time school record, while Hansen's mark is the second best in the history of Montana State. The mark is also the second best mark in the league this season, only behind Tatum Richards, who vaulted 13 feet 10 inches last month and currently sits in the top 5 in the mountain region. Richards is the defending Big Sky champion and the MSU school record holder. McGee, a graduate student from Camas, Washington, shared the Big Sky Outdoor Co-Women's Field Athlete of the Week honors with Hansen after her record-setting jump. McGee and Hansen are considered the two top contenders to threaten Richards at this week's Big Sky Outdoor Championships in Portland, Oregon. Other top-seeded athletes heading into the league's championships include Montana's Carson Bites in the 100 and 200 meters, U of M senior Alex Shields in the shot put, and Grizz pole vaulter Kevin Swindler on the men's side, along with Montana freshman Callie Wilson in the 100 meters, MSU senior Carolyn Hawks in the 200 and 400 meters, Montana State Sydney Brewster in the shot put and the discus, and Richards in the pole vault.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is presented by Canyon River Golf Club. Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. 129 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Time now for a Treasure State Stars. It's probably presented by Parkside Credit Union. Parkside Credit Union, a great place in western Montana to get a loan because Parkside Credit Union loves to say yes. Big Sky Outdoor Track and Field Championships are coming up this week in Portland, Oregon. The multi-events starts tomorrow. So that'll be the first of 2 days worth of decathlon events. Women's heptathlon starts on Thursday. Then the full meet gets going on. I think they might start the pole vault on Thursday as well. But then the whole meet gets going on Friday. So Friday, Saturday is going to be the bulk of these events that we're about to highlight. I think that for most of my time covering the Big Sky Conference, you've always had, like, and I'm talking like covered both Montana State, and covered all the sports. That's probably, let's just call it a 15 or 16 year sample size. Pretty consistently, the Bobcats have been better than the Grizz in track. And they've had more athletes that are of like regional meet / national meet quality. Like athletes that are going to advance beyond the Big Sky Conference championships during the outdoor season. Now, but the Montana's always had like a handful of great ones. Whether you're talking about like Erica McLeod, Lindsey Hall, some of the great heptathletes that the Grizz ladies team has had. I mean, there's been some others like Courtney Danruther was an awesome, sprinter type. There's been some really good ones for the Grizz, just not quite as many as we've seen at Montana State. Part of that's because MSU has an indoor, Montana does not. MSU just has better track facilities. They've invested more in track and field. But don't look now, Montana has done a great job investing in track and field. And they've done a great job of building up their track and field program. So now as we highlight some of the best top contenders from the Grizz and the Cats heading into this conference championship meet, I mean, it's equal, if not maybe slightly favoring the Grizz. Athletes to watch this week. We'll first start with Montana. Carson Bites, he's been on this show. He's a Missoula Sentinel product, former walk-on for the Grizz track team. He's taken this thing all the way to the next level. He broke the school records in both the 100 and the 200 meters so far this year, and his times are the best in the conference. He ran 10.17 at the Pacific Coast Invite. That's smoking fast. I mean, that's about a tenth of a second off of being like world-class fast. That's a smoking time. He also ran 20.55 seconds in the 200 meters. That also was a school record. He did that at that same Pacific Coast meet. So he's a cool story. A guy that's really built himself up and leaned into the training. And if he could go a double dip, I mean, if you sweep the 100 and the 200, you're going to be remembered forever in the track and field world for sure. And I think that's in the cards for Carson Bites. Another athlete to watch is Alex Shields. He's also a Missoula guy. He hails from Hellgate, and he's the top shot put thrower in the conference. He's the only guy in the Big Sky that has surpassed 60 feet so far this year. He did that a couple weeks ago with a 60-foot, 8-inch throw at the Idaho State Bengals Invitational, and that also set a Montana school record. And then the fourth record holder this spring so far, I guess the third record holder, fourth event that had a school record shattered in it so far this spring, is Kevin Swindler. He hails from Tigard, Oregon, which is right outside of Portland, and he's the favorite in the pole vault. He's almost got on the podium before, but he's really taking it to the next level this year. He's got the top mark in the conference, 17 feet, 7.25 inches. That is also a Montana school record, and he comes in at the number one seed in the pole vault in the Big Sky by almost 6 inches. So he's been dominant compared to the rest of Big Sky vaulters, certainly. On the girls' side, Treasure State Stars, probably presented by Parkside Credit Union for Montana. Callie Wilson, a young lady that's been on this show before. She's a freshman phenom. She won the 60 meters and the 200 meters at the Big Sky Indoor, set the Montana school records in both of those. She also set the school record in the 200 meters the second time she ever ran it, which is pretty dang impressive. She also has the top 100-meter time in the Big Sky this year. 11.37 is her top-seeded time, and she comes in with aspirations in both the 100 and the 200. Carolyn Hawks from Montana State. We'll get to the MSU women here in just a minute. Carolyn Hawks, though, has the top time in the 200 and the 400. some of her biggest competition is from Montana, including Callie Wilson. I think the 100, the 200, and the 400 are going to be some of the events to watch on the women's side. Callie Wilson is only 2/100ths of a second behind Carolyn Hawks in the seeded times in the 200 meters. Peyton Garrison and Jaden Wolf of Montana State are also in the top 4. So it's all Montana girls. 3 from Montana State, 1 from Montana in the seedings for the 200 meters. But then you also have one more Bobcat and 2 more Grizz in the top 9. Brooks Zatuni and Lily Meskers from the Grizz are also in the top 9, as is Tilde Bajurgar, I think is how you say it. So that's, you're talking about like 8 out of the top 10 200-meter runners in the conference are from the Montana schools. That's pretty cool. It's the same thing in the 400 meters. Hawks has the top time in the 400. Meskers and McKenna Ells from Montana each have the 2 and 3 times. Gerarger has the top time, or the top time for a freshman, and she's 4th in the league in the 400 meters. Julia Gandolfi is also run the 6th fastest time for Montana State. Sophia Clark has run the 8th fastest time in the 400. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the top 9 times in the Big Sky in the 400 meters are, again, from young ladies running for either the Grizz or the Cats. Carrying on here, though, in terms of athletes to watch from Montana, the 4x100 relay team could certainly threaten to get a regional berth for the Grizz. The 4x400 meter relay team for the Cats also could threaten to get a regional berth as well. Other Grizz that have top seeds include Ashley Carroll in the javelin, 155 feet at 2.5 inches is her top throw. She's the top seed there. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the Montana javelin throwers as well. I just have the top mark in the entire conference up here. Blake Sturgis from Idaho has the top mark at 240, but Kyle Lorg of Montana is second at 240. Sturgis leads it by 2 inches, but Lorg's also got a 240-foot throw. Hunter Loesch from Montana also has a 233-foot throw, and Cooper Henkel also has a 213-foot throw. So 3 of the top 5 guys in the javelin are also from Montana. That's the same case on the women's side. You also have to be on the lookout for Erin Wild in the high jump. She's going for her 4th straight outdoor championship. It would be her 7th Big Sky championship in the high jump overall. She hails from Whitefish. The athletes to watch on the Montana State side of things. On the men's side, Rob McManus in the 3K steeplechase. He's been sort of a staple there. They have been a staple in that event. His top time is 8 minutes and 30 seconds. But if he can get down below that, like the 8:20s, is going to absolutely get you not just to regionals, but probably nationals. 8:15 is the world championship qualifying time. So he's a little ways off that, but he has run in the 8-minute and teens before. So we'll see if he can threaten that once again. We mentioned Carolyn Hawks. She's the top seed in both the 200 and the 400. So she's certainly one to watch, no doubt. That 4x400 meter relay team that includes Hawks and Gandolfi and Peyton Garrison, that team could probably set another school record in the mile relay. Sydney Brewster is a young lady we've talked about a ton on this show, but she's the top seed in the shot put and the discus for Montana State as well. Tatum Richards, the defending champion in the pole vault, as she has the top mark in the league at 13 feet, 10 inches. And probably the last young lady that's worth highlighting, she doesn't compete at either of the Montana schools, but she's from Missoula. She's from Hellgate. Haley Burns. She is the top seed in the 800 meters, the 1,500 meters, and the 5,000 meters. That's an impressive trio of races to be the top seed in. So that's another great story. Several of the top seeds are kids not just from Montana, but from Missoula at multiple different schools around the Big Sky Conference. So pretty darn cool. Nuanez Now 102.9 ESPN Radio. Thursday Stars, probably presented by Parkside Credit Union. Parkside Credit Union is a great place in Western Montana to get a loan because Parkside Credit Union loves to say yes. What other track and field marks from the high school ranks has you excited? I'll tell you what has me excited on the other side. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Les Schwab changed the tire game more than 70 years ago. Today, we still believe you should get more from less. Like more hustle, less hassle. More of the best service around, less of the runaround. Because we include America's best tire warranty in every tire we sell. So you get more unbeatable warranty, less charging you extra. It's why we're more than proud to say, you get more from less.
What do you expect me to say to her? She's getting married in 30 minutes.
We're doing everything we can.
John, can you hear me? John?
Mountain Town Vacation Rental Management, your local partner for vacation rental success. We provide a fully customized hosting experience tailored to your needs and goals. Your home is listed on every major site, helping you maximize visibility and bookings. And our local team is available 24/7 to handle guest needs and booking inquiries. Let us take the stress out of managing your vacation home. Contact us today at mountaintownvrm.com or give us a call at 406-369-3080.
It's Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
Welcome back. Well, tonight, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, and the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Time for Treasure State's best highlights of the best track performances at the high school level. I know sometimes these can just get like a little numbers heavy, so I'm trying to make it more into sort of like a narrative or like a highlight of a couple different people rather than just telling you how ridiculous some of these marks are. Try to give you some context on a national scale or a historic scale or just about the story. Sometimes though, these just write them for it just writes itself for you, right? Johns Lee Pierre is a young man who goes to Luster Christian High School. Luster Christian High School is, as the old saying goes, it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. It's in a very, very remote location. It is a private boarding school. They have been tremendously good in a couple different boys' sports, particularly basketball. Played for the Class C state championship this last year. Lost to Scobie. But Johns Lee Pierre is one of those athletes that probably doesn't have a lot of track experience. But now he is just taking not just Class C, but the state of Montana by storm. I'm not sure where Johns Lee Pierre is originally from. A lot of the Luster Christian students are from out of state or even out of the country. They have quite a few international students. Like that's probably because of the the religious connotations of the school and some of the missionary work that has been done. And then a lot of the stuff where the kids get brought to America and get sent to this boarding school in remote Montana. I don't know the details well enough. Jeff Safford did a really good interview with the basketball coach, but it was still a little bit vague regardless, I'm not sure where Pierre is from, but I'm pretty sure he's pretty new to the sport, and now he's figuring it out. And look out for the rest of the state of Montana. Over the weekend, first of all, Pierre won the 300-meter hurdles last year at the Class C championship. But this last weekend, he became the first hurdler in the state of Montana to break 39 seconds in the 300 hurdles, 38.46. That's the top time so far in the state all class. But then he also ripped off a 23-foot, 9-inch long jump. If you don't understand what that means, the all-class state record is 23.8. So that means if he hit that at state, that's the longest jump in Montana history. Oh, by the way, about an hour later in the triple jump, he goes 47.10.5. 48.5 is the all-time Montana record. So basically, in the span of about an hour at the Sydney Invite, he had the second longest triple jump in state history and the longest long jump. Now, again, you have to hit to set a state championship record, you have to do it at the state championship meet. I can sort of see that because that's the easiest way to have like the wind meters and the proper markings and all that sort of stuff. I also think it's just sort of a bummer for the athletes if they hit a mark that it would have been a state record, but it didn't happen at a specific time. But either way, this kid's going to be in the mix to break at least 2 all-class state records. That's pretty darn impressive. He throws down state championships in long jump, triple jump, and 300 hurdles. His recruiting stock's going to take all the way off. But also, if you're the all-class record holder, after just doing track for a little while, that's pretty darn impressive. A couple others that caught my eye in terms of in terms of current state bests in the state of Montana. Belgrade's Wilson Schmidt continued to make waves. He ran 1 minute 52.28 seconds in the 800 meters. That is by far the top time in the state so far. And Columbus's Garrett Prather, he ran 21.61 in the 200 meters at the Midland Roundtable Top 10. That is by far the top mark in the state of Montana. That's a college level time. And that's what makes this so cool, right? We're talking about, this is what makes track awesome. This is what I love about track. Johns Lee St. Pierre's is competing in Class C at a totally rural school, but he's in the mix to be the all-time greatest long jumper and triple jumper ever in Montana. Garrett Prather, if he ran that time, the 200-meter time, he'll flirt with the all-time record. He's from Class B Columbus. Wilson Schmidt, that 1 minute 52.28 seconds in the 800, that'll be right there in the mix for an all-class state record as well. He's from a class, well, I guess Belgrade's a AA school now, but it's not all class dependent, right? So I think that's what really makes track fun is that you can sort of compare and contrast. And a lot of times they have these top 10 meets where there's athletes from all over the region of like that part of the state, and they're going against other people with comparable times. So then you see the times go through the roof. I mean, that's what happened with Prather, right? He was at the Midland Roundtable Top 10, which is like the eastern part of the state's invitational. And, he went low. Same thing with Billings Senior's Emery Peel. She ran the top 100-meter time in the state on the girls' side, 12.03 seconds. That was also at the Midland Roundtable Top 10. That would also be an all-class state record. So we got some great track athletes right now in the state of Montana. That's the one thing, like when I compare and contrast, like I've watched high school sports in this state ever since I was a kid. So let's call it 30-ish years. And certainly I've been a historian of high school sports as well and studied it and done interviews about it and all that. And I think that some sports in Montana are, they are on an upward trajectory. They're linear. Others, like there's great athletes in Montana. There always is going to be. Like girls basketball is as good as it's ever been. Boys basketball is not even close to as good as it used to be. There's a ton of reasons for that. I could do an hour on the why of both the greatness of girls basketball and maybe the lessening of boys basketball. I think that football is in some ways better, in some ways not as good as it's always been in Montana. I think that's interesting. The one thing, though, that is unquestionably as good as it's ever been, and it's not even close, is track and field, especially in the running stuff. Some of the throws, too, I just don't know if you're ever going to see shot putters like Dennis Black or Shane Collins. I mean, those guys were Olympic quality when they were in Montana as high school guys. But some of the other stuff, the sprinting, the pole vaulting, some of the other events like that are as good as they've ever been. And the way you can, it's not, there's not as much nuance or as much subjectivity to the debate, because there's not really a debate. Like, if you throw the shot put farther than anybody, you throw the discus farther than anybody, you run the 100 meters faster than anybody, how can you not say you're the best at that event ever in Montana, right? So if Emery Peel throws down like that, I mean, we can see the 100-meter records in Montana on both the boys and the girls' sides fall. How crazy would that be? Cooper Nelson from Helena Capital ran 10.49 in early April in the 100 meters. Emery Peel, 12.03 this last week on the girls' side. Both those would be all-class state records if they happen at the state meet. Other state records that might be in peril include the long jump and the triple jump for sure. I mean, if Riley McGrath can keep on climbing, maybe he can get there in the shot put. We highlighted him last week. He did one up. He went 60 feet last week in the shot put. He went 61, 10 3/4 this week. He's from Bozeman Gallatin. He's a junior. 68 and change is the record. So I don't know if he can add another, 7 feet in the next less than a month, but he's creeping up. And there's certainly some other records that might be threatened for sure. So we'll keep you up to date week by week of what are some of the best storylines in the track and field world across the state of Montana, because it's certainly a sport that continues to surge forward and continues to get better. Nuanez Now 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hour 1 in the books, hour 2 coming at you. Take a break, talk some Grizz football. Offensive line coach Brett Myers. It's his first year in Montana, but he's been around the Big Sky for almost 30 years. And he's been coaching college football for more than 40. He's our guest next. Keep it right here. 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Life can change in an instant. If you've been hurt in an accident, suffered from medical negligence, or are facing criminal charges, you don't have to face it alone. At Ryan Miller & Coburn, we're here to listen and fight for you. We're your neighbors, traveling across Montana to stand by your side as your link to justice. Real people, real help, right here in Montana. Ryan Miller & Coburn, your Montana attorneys.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the exceptionally designed 2024 Buick Envision with models starting at $39,795. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to DeMorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Envisions and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
Life's about the journey, not the destination, right? Why can't it be about both?
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
A pair of pole vaulters, one from each side of the rivalry, posted historic marks in Bozeman last weekend. Hello, I am Hayden Smith. The Tom Gage Classic is a regular season finale for the Montana and Montana State track and field teams each spring. And in Bozeman on Friday, Montana's Shaylee McGee and Montana State's Libby Hansen each vaulted 13 feet, 7 1/4 inches. McGee's mark set a Montana all-time school record, while Hansen's mark is the second best in the history of Montana State. The mark is also the second best mark in the league this season, only behind Tatum Richards, who vaulted 13 feet 10 inches last month and currently sits in the top 5 in the mountain region. Richards is the defending Big Sky champion and the MSU school record holder. McGee, a graduate student from Camas, Washington, shared the Big Sky Outdoor Co-Women's Field Athlete of the Week honors with Hansen after her record-setting jump. McGee and Hansen are considered the two top contenders to threaten Richards at this week's Big Sky Outdoor Championships in Portland, Oregon. Other top-seeded athletes heading into the league's championships include Montana's Carson Bites in the 100 and 200 meters, U of M senior Alex Shields in the shot put, and Grizz pole vaulter Kevin Swindler on the men's side, along with Montana freshman Callie Wilson in the 100 meters, MSU senior Carolyn Hawks in the 200 and 400 meters, Montana State Sydney Brewster in the shot put and the discus, and Richards in the pole vault.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is presented by Canyon River Golf Club. This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal can pick up your recycling now. It's a relatively new addition to their services. Plastics, cardboards, cans, they got you twice a month. You want to add the service or make the switch or both. 406-541-7171. That's 406-541-7171. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran owned, and the only Bears that should be in your garbage. This thing in the first hour of the show, talked plenty of track and field. We also answered some of your questions, did a rehashing of the Grizz at Mount Rushmore for both coaches and players football-wise. Also did the same thing for the Cats. And gave you some athletes to watch headed into this week's Big Sky Outdoor Track and Field Championships, and gave you some of the best marks so far in high school track and field. All that on the Nuanez Now podcast, which is available on all your various podcast hosting platforms. Please rate, review, subscribe. Appreciate you no matter how you're tuning in here on Nuanez Now. We're going to try to do as much football as we can, even though it's a long time away from football season. We're going to try to get as many interviews as we can. Historical interviews, contemporary interviews, recruits, all that sort of stuff, because I just know that the football fever is burning pretty hot right now in the state of Montana. So, on that note, this was a pleasure. I haven't talked to an offensive line coach for the Grizz in a long time. We got the new one right now. Well, you know, we love talking offensive line play here on Nuanez Now. That's what we're going to do here today, checking in with Montana's offensive line and their new offensive line coach, Brett Myers. He's been in the fold for a couple months here in Montana, but a guy who's been around the Big Sky Conference for a really long time. I first got to know Coach Myers when he was at Weber State, so it's fun having him here in the Treasure State. Coach, thanks for being here. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me. Well, this will be fun.
Yeah, first of all, tell us just about your journey to Montana, because you've been in the Big Sky for a long time. I know you've been coaching out west in college football for a really long time, too. You've crossed paths with several guys on the staff before. So tell us about just sort of this opportunity and what led you to Montana.
Well, very, very, very good friends with Bobby Houck. He and I were at Northern Arizona. 93 is when Bobby joined our staff. I went there in 1992 with Steve Axman. And then Bobby was there through the end of the 95 season for 3 years, and he went to Colorado. I stayed for 2 more, and then I went to Boise State with Dirk Cutter. And Bobby and I remained great friends. Our wives are really good friends. My daughter is the same age as her 2 twin girls. And then we won back then it was the Big West at Boise State, and really kind of got Boise State on the map. And then I fortunately got hired at the University of Washington in Seattle, where I'm from, and that was the same staff that had left Colorado and gone to Washington under Rick Neuheisel with Bobby. And so Bobby and I coached at Washington for 3 years, and great friends. And then fast forward to 2010, after the Grizz had lost to Villanova in the NCAA finals, and I was at the University of Louisville at the time, Bobby hired me as the tight end, H-back, fullback coach at UNLV. Unfortunately, we got fired at Louisville, and I was looking for a job. So I ended up coaching for Bobby for 3 years at UNLV, and I'm an O-line guy at heart. I mean, and I didn't, passionately wanted to get back to coaching the O-line. So I got an opportunity to go and coach for Jay Hill, who I had coached with at the University of Utah. And I love Jay, and I'm very close to Jay, and it was an opportunity for me to go back and be O-line coach again. And my daughter and my wife both loved the state of Utah, and so we end up coming back in 2014. And so I was at Weber State from 2014 until the end of this past season. I ended up actually not getting retained. And, it's college football, and it's kind of frustrating because I'd been there as long as I had, and I had interviewed for the job twice when Coach Hill left to go to BYU, and then this time around, but they chose to go in a different direction. So about, I want to say 4 or 5 days after I did not get retained by the new coach, Eric Kerr, Bobby called me and told me that Cam Norcross had left. And he goes, "I'd love to have you up here. Think about it," and it didn't take me very long. Because I've been here and I know how good the tradition is here. And I was really curious because I had played and coached here, it seems like 100 times, and you never get a chance to get a feel for the inside of an institution, a program. And when I came here, I was not shocked, and that's not the best word, but very, very fired up about the opportunity, just based on the way things have been done, the discipline of the kids, attitude, the culture. So it's been nothing but really good for me. I really have enjoyed it a tremendous amount. So,
well, it seems like
long story short,
seems like during this transition, though, that's sort of been one of the common folds is that a lot of the players that I've talked to have said that it's been not seamless, but pretty easy for them. Even with Coach Houck leaving and then some new guys on the staff coming in, seems like they've reacted to it pretty well. And I know Coach Kennedy's been very pleased with the work you guys got in during spring ball. So in your mind, how's the transition gone, being that there is so many sort of new faces on the coaching staff?
Well, one of the things that I feel like has been really good from an offensive standpoint is the main guys are still here, and I say that to you in regards to the main guys being Brent Pease and Rob Fennessy.
Right.
And then bringing back our running back coach, Dom Dasty, who'd been head high school coach at a fantastic program in Washington, and him wanting to get back to Missoula, move back here because Seattle's not the greatest place. And I'm from there. It's just way different now than what it used to be. But anyways, the familiarity and the continuity of the offense and having really only one guy, and that being me, to have to learn what has been done here in the past. And it was really simple for me to, because I've done it a bunch of times, come in and recognize scheme and then translate it in my mind as to how things are. And so really for the old line, there hasn't been a bunch of changes. Maybe a little bit of different word verbiage on how I coach them in a technique, but from a schematic standpoint, it's been very, very seamless transition, which has been great.
When it comes to just your philosophies in terms of developing offensive linemen, how have those sort of evolved over the years? And do you have a preference? I mean, do you like to kind of bring guys in and that are, maybe not as big, more athletic, build them up? Or do you want the big guy right away and try to teach them the technique? What's sort of your baseline philosophy, especially with young offensive linemen, when it comes to building them up?
I like the athletic guy and build them up. And that, a part of that is getting a chance to, when you recruit them, to see body type, frame, length, hip width. Can they carry, if they're 250 pounds and they're 6'5", can they carry 290 and stay athletic? And then the development process, does he have the work ethic, the toughness factor, the mental toughness to gain weight, get bigger, stronger? And, to answer your question, I like the kid that's not a ready-made guy in regards to size. It's a big difference between high school O-line play and college O-line play, and you know that as well as I do. And so I don't like the kid that's already 310 pounds, because if he's 310 pounds at 17 years old, probably not going to be a whole lot bigger, and you're always going to be worried about weight gain and that kind of stuff. And I like the athletic guy more, to answer your question.
Yeah, I know when you were at Weber, I know when Coach Hill was there, especially, there was a couple guys that you had that became great players that started out as defensive linemen. We were talking about Suo Peta, who's now been in the NFL for more than a handful of years. The guy's been with the Philadelphia Eagles, now at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know he started as a defensive lineman. I think he had a couple other guys that became great offensive linemen as defensive guys. Why do you think that works so well for you guys there? And is that something maybe you think about employing at Montana?
Yeah. I always, whenever I watch a kid's high school tape and he's an old lineman, it always sparks my interest when I see a kid who also has defensive clips. Nowadays, the kids are playing one way, and if they're an old lineman, they're and they're good, they're going to end up playing on offense. But if they're also playing on defense and you can see them on defense, it's awesome to see, because now you can see them run, open up, chase the ball. You can see their intensity, their finish, because they're chasing the football, and I love that. Most of the time, and I hate to say this to you, but the progression goes D tackle to D end, and then if you can't play D end or D tackle, they're going to O line.
Sure.
High school tight ends, they go to offensive tackle, or on defense, if they can't play defense, they go to the O line. So we end up getting kids that, for whatever reason, fit a little bit better offensively, and a lot of it has to do with mental makeup, maybe a quickness issue. Sometimes because defense is so reactive, sometimes assignment football is a little easier for a kid. There's a couple different factors that get into it, but I've had a lot of success with kids coming from the defensive line to being really, really good O-linemen. It's happened to me in my career a couple of different times.
Yeah, no doubt. Brett Myers joining us here on the Big City Breakdown podcast series, as well as on Nuanez Now 102.9 ESPN Radio, is the offensive line coach for the University of Montana. So what do you think of this opportunity then with the current group? Because Montana had a veteran-laden offensive line last year, a bunch of seniors. So now you got a whole bunch of guys that are sort of new in the fold that are fighting their way up and trying to form your top unit. So you probably like that as a coach, getting a chance to sort of mold a young group. So what do you like about the chance that you have here?
Well, the one thing that I will say to you is there was a very, very veteran group, and all of the kids that are playing for me right now, except for the freshmen, have gotten live game reps, multiple reps. They played a lot because Montana had the lead a lot.
Sure, right.
And really, what is really good is Bobby and the offensive staff played those kids and gave them what I thought was really good reps. And then I got to see those kids play as I went through cut-ups and evaluated, And I think, and one of the things that I always say all the time is every good player started for his first time. Okay, you take an All-American like I had in Sua, and the kid that just went to Denver Broncos for me, Gavin Ortega, who was two-time All-Conference kid at Weber.
Yep.
He started as a freshman for me. Sua came from the defensive side and never started. They're going to start sometime, and then they become experienced. Cannon Panfiloff, he started his first time at Utah Tech because, I tried to get him to come to Weber when he transferred. Anyways, everybody starts somewhere, and I told the kids when I first met with them, this is your turn. It's your chance. Take advantage of the opportunity, and let's go to work, and let's do our job, and let's take advantage of our opportunity. Because you have sat behind somebody doesn't mean you're not a good player. All it means is you weren't ready yet for whatever reason. And I'm excited about giving the kids a chance. I think it's going to be really good.
Well, I think you have some guys that have some good talent, Jim. I thought Lucas Freitas looked really good during the spring game. He's a guy that's played quite a bit. I know he was sort of doing double duty, going back and forth between the white and the maroon. So he's because he had somebody else out, right?
Well, let me say this to you. Before spring ball, Dylan Jemtegard, who's transferred from Cal.
Yep.
Great kid. Love him. His brother got married the day of the spring game. And back in, before spring ball started, Coach Kennedy and I said, hey, it's family. If you miss the spring game, it's not that big a deal. We'll get through it. We'll have, because we had enough kids. But what ended up happening, we had a couple guys get some little nicks and dings. And so what we ended up having was we had to rotate the inside players, centers, guards. And so Lucas, Dylan Drummond, and Matt Hilden, they rotated with the white team. And so what I would do is I would give those guys series, then they'd flip jerseys. And so it worked itself out, but it was because of Dylan having an opportunity to be in his brother's wedding. So
yeah, anyway. Well, I mean, good for those guys to get the extra reps, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of Freitas' talent, though? Because I mean, he's big and he moves well. He looks like he could be a guy that could be a really good player.
I am hoping what you're saying is right. I really think he's got a chance to be a really good player. I really do. And our transfer from UNLV, Dylan Drummond, is really good.
Yeah.
And very physical. And he's still learning the offense, because it's different than UNLV and terminology is different. And but the other guy that I thought had a really good spring and I think is going to be a really good player is Austin Bueller.
I was hoping you were going to say that because I loved him coming out of Helena Capital in high school.
He is athletic, long, and I think he's just developing a ton of confidence. And so, I got to, we got to keep grinding and keep getting better. And then I got a couple young guys that I think are going to be pretty good too. The freshman class that came in last year, and they're just freshmen. And I always say that. Hang on, fellas, patience. They're just freshmen, but they're developing. They're hard workers. They want to please. They're into football. Close knit group, which typically the old linemen are. And I enjoy being around them, and they're very coachable. And so I think the future is bright. Now I'm going to give you the reason why I think the future is bright. Okay, we got a quarterback.
Indeed.
And we got 2 really good tailbacks, maybe 3 really good tailbacks. And we got a freshman tailback coming in. You're going to like the looks of him. Courtney looks like a Greek god. And we got a chance to be really good. And I say that to you in all honesty with some futuristic optimism, I guess. You never know. Got to keep guys healthy. Got to be really smart with the way we practice and the way we're doing things. But I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be a really good team again. Because I've been in the league long enough, I can tell.
Right, no doubt. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you got a quarterback, you got a chance, especially if the kid's one of the best players in the country, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely is. And then you pair him with Gilman, who's another one of the best players in the country. And
absolutely.
Pretty good place to start.
Yeah. Really good.
So when it comes to sort of the young guys that are fighting their way on, like what's sort of what's the ticket to ride? Like in your mind, what's the thing that's going to help a guy sort of break through and solidify a spot?
Number one for me is command of the system and then the execution of the system. I want to see the young guys decrease the amount of mental mistakes that they make, because that shows me that they are in tune with what we're trying to do. They can transfer information quick at the line of scrimmage. Those things to me are where a young guy takes himself to the next level in terms of his understanding, because we got more to take care of than anybody. Really, the quarterback and tight ends would be very much the same in terms of the mental aspect, but the quick mental adjustment and then physically doing it. That's where I think they make the jump. Then there is the physical ability part of it, the strength maturation, the quickness. Then can they play and succeed? I use a mantra that I stole from John Gruden a long time ago called recognize, communicate, and execute, which is RCE. And I'm not the originator. John is, and I got it when I went to the Raiders camp, and I thought it was awesome. And so I use that with the kids. But that's a part of being a guy. So you have to do the mental part of it, the recognition. And then you got to be able to communicate the call so we know exactly where all 5 of us, 6 of us being a tight end are going. And then you got to execute it physically. And so if those kids can get to that point where they're on an every down basis being very consistent and recognizing, communicating, executing, that's where they end up giving themselves an opportunity to compete for a job. And that takes time. It does. There's no question about it. It takes reps. It takes summer work, which we're going to start here in a month. And it's all a maturation point. That's why you don't see very many freshmen start at the collegiate level in the offensive line because there's so much to it.
No doubt. Well, it's going to be fun to watch, certainly, and excited about it. Last question for you then. For somebody that has been in the league for more than 10 years, I mean, you guys won some Big Sky championships at Weber State. You had high level of play, especially when Coach Hill was there.
Yes.
But now you're at Montana where you sort of target on your back all the time, right? I mean, the Grizzlies have been expected to be a Final Four team no matter what year it is, year in and year out. Yep. So what do you think of just sort of those expectations, and how's that transition gone for you to sort of being part of now one of the premier programs in the Western United States?
Well, interestingly enough, the Big Sky, and this is going way back to the early 80s when I was at Eastern Washington and we were trying to get in the conference as a back then a 1AA independent. The road to the title always goes through Montana. I mean, it just does. Now, in the different times, in the different decades that I've coached, which there's a few, it's always been that way. And there was a time here when Bobby left and Pflugrad was here, and then there was a little bit of it was not quite that way, and then we got hot at Weber. But as soon as Bobby came back and then Brent Vegan took over, there's no question the road to the title is always comes through Montana, whether it's beating them at home or you got to come up here and play. There is no question about that part of it. And I would say this to you, that if you're a competitive guy, you want to coach at a school that has the expectations that this one does. And it's just competitiveness. When I came up here, I was like, okay, I got a chance. Now, I've been to the semifinals, but I have never won the title. And I would love a shot just to say I got it, and because I've been close. And, you got good teams and you think you're good enough, and then all of a sudden you come up short. Well, I don't want to come up short, So like I was saying to you, I love the expectation. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's a cool thing to be around, to be a part of, certainly, and we look very much forward to covering you guys moving forward. But best of luck with everything. I know that you guys got a busy road ahead here, but we appreciate you for spending some time with us.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. You do a great job with Big Sky Sports and local sports here, man. I enjoyed listening to you, and I got you. I got you on my radio all the time because I love sports talk radio. I don't know about anybody else who's a coach, but I like listening to it because it's, especially when you get a chance to talk Big Sky stuff. I followed you way back. Gosh dang, I want to say maybe 2015, 16.
I was going to say probably right when you started at Weber, because that's when we first started Skyline.
Yeah. And I being an old man, I wasn't a social media guy, but I had to get a Twitter account. And now I kind of like Twitter, but I had to get a Twitter account, and that's where I first followed you. And I started, because I wanted information and hear about the teams up here, So, anyways, but you do a great job, and keep it up, man. It's awesome.
Well, thanks, man. We appreciate your time, and thanks so much for being with us here today.
Okay, thanks, Coulter. We'll talk soon.
It's always fun when you get to cross paths multiple times, right? A lot of times you cross paths with coaches, at some point, and in the Big Sky, so often, especially the assistants, they're on their way up and they're on their way out, right? But Brett Meyer's been around the Big Sky forever, so I've gotten a chance to interview him throughout the years. He had some great offensive linemen at Weber State. I thought that Suo Opeta was probably one of the better players we've ever covered in my time covering the Big Sky Conference. And Suo Opeta is still in the NFL. I mean, he's been in the NFL now for, it's got to be close to a decade now. Let's see, since 2018. So, yeah, we're going into year 8 for Opeta. And he's going to be trying to make his way. I think he's back in Tampa Bay. So he was with the Philadelphia Eagles for 5 years, then Tampa Bay the last couple of years, and then he was on injured reserve last year, but he's trying to make his way back. But he certainly was a good one at Weber State, and Brett Myers certainly had a big hand in his development, transitioning from the defensive line to the offensive line, and then becoming an All-American there at Weber State. So I think Brett Myers is a great addition for the University of Montana. Nuanez Now 129 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Take a break, come back, talk some NBA. That's next. Keep it right here.
What do you expect me to say to her? She's getting married in 30 minutes.
We're doing everything we can.
John, can you hear me? John.
At Shields, we're anglers, endlessly seeking and refining techniques. We're hunters and storytellers, because we've been out there. We're experts that put products and gear to the test, so we can share that knowledge with you. At Shields, we understand your outdoor journey and the path you're on, because we walk it too, every step of the way. Shields, right there with you.
Mountain Town Vacation Rental Management, your local partner for vacation rental success. We provide a fully customized hosting experience tailored to your needs and goals. Your home is listed on every major site, helping you maximize visibility and bookings. And our local team is available 24/7 to handle guest needs and booking inquiries. Let us take the stress out of managing your vacation home. Contact us today at mountaintownvrm.com or give us a call at 406-369-3080.
The rare moments in life, they're not just few and far between. They're meant to be treasured.
Bring the whole family to the Stone of Accord for a wonderful brunch. From traditional comfort food to eclectic specials, there's something for everyone to enjoy. And it wouldn't be a proper Missoula brunch without an Irish coffee and a mimosa. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino. At the Stone of Accord, we use the freshest ingredients to create our homemade traditional Irish classics, fresh salads, and creative specials. Come enjoy our warm, family-friendly atmosphere. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
A pair of pole vaulters, one from each side of the rivalry, posted historic marks in Bozeman last weekend. Hello, I am Hayden Smith. The Tom Gage Classic is a regular season finale for the Montana and Montana State track and field teams each spring. And in Bozeman on Friday, Montana's Shaylee McGee and Montana State's Libby Hansen each vaulted 13 feet, 7 1/4 inches. McGee's mark set a Montana all-time school record, while Hansen's mark is the second best in the history of Montana State. The mark is also the second best mark in the league this season, only behind Tatum Richards, who vaulted 13 feet 10 inches last month and currently sits in the top 5 in the mountain region. Richards is the defending Big Sky champion and the MSU school record holder. McGee, a graduate student from Camas, Washington, shared the Big Sky Outdoor Co-Women's Field Athlete of the Week honors with Hansen after her record-setting jump. McGee and Hansen are considered the two top contenders to threaten Richards at this week's Big Sky Outdoor Championships in Portland, Oregon. Other top-seeded athletes heading into the league's championships include Montana's Carson Bites in the 100 and 200 meters, U of M senior Alex Shields in the shot put, and Grizz pole vaulter Kevin Swindler on the men's side, along with Montana freshman Callie Wilson in the 100 meters, MSU senior Carolyn Hawks in the 200 and 400 meters, Montana State Sydney Brewster in the shot put and the discus, and Richards in the pole vault.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is presented by Canyon River Golf Club. Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Super strange and sad news earlier today. This is probably, I don't know if Brandon Clark is a mainstream type of name, but I think around the Northwest, he's certainly somebody that is known because he was a great player at Gonzaga. And I know there's a lot of Gonzaga fans around Montana, around Western Montana for sure. Brandon Clark was a standout for Gonzaga, and then was a first-round draft pick by the Memphis Grizzlies. He had a good career for the Grizzlies, but he died today. He's only 29 years old. No release, no cause of death released yet. But he was a double-figure scorer for the first 5 years of his NBA career, and then sort of fell on hard times on the court the last couple of years. Only started 18 games 2 years ago. Only played 2 games this year. He was arrested last month, high-speed chase, controlled substances, et cetera, So you don't want to think the worst, but sometimes that's where your mind goes when somebody dies in the prime of their life. But I thought that was just sort of a strange news brief for a guy that was just. He's most well known for his college career, and it seems like he was just in college. I guess it was 6-7 years ago now, but. Too bad. Brandon Clark passed away at the age of 29. This also just hit my Twitter feed. This was like 8 minutes ago. Jason Collins. The Collins twins were from Stanford. They play in the NBA for a long time, each decade plus. Jason Collins himself played for 6 teams over the span of 13 years. And he was probably most well known for being the first openly gay professional athlete, certainly in the NBA. Actually can't speak for hockey. I'm not really sure about baseball, but certainly the NBA or the NFL, Jason Collins was the first openly gay player in NBA history. And he died today, too. 47 years old. Glioblastoma. That's awful. It's brain cancer, basically. So 2 NBA guys gone far too soon, and just sad news. Jason Collins was an incredibly smart guy. It was really fun to listen to talk basketball. He did some cameos with, I should say, not even cameos. He had some stints as like an analyst, sideline guy, studio shows and stuff like that. He's always really smart and fun to listen to watch basketball, and certainly took a lot of courage to sort of blaze a trail is the wrong word, but to just sort of be himself and let that be an open thing, in a world where maybe no one had the courage to do that before him. So, bummer on both those notes. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take one more break, pay one more set of bills, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some NBA. So we actually have a little bit of time to breathe here. So we'll do that. See you on the other side. Just a couple minutes away. What's going down tonight? What are some of the matchups to watch? And what do I think of the 2 series that remain going in the NBA playoffs? That's on the other side. Don't change that doc. Keep it right here. 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Bring the whole family to the Stone of Accord for a wonderful brunch. From traditional comfort food to eclectic specials, there's something for everyone to enjoy. And it wouldn't be a proper Missoula brunch without an Irish coffee and a mimosa. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino. At the Stone of Accord, we use the freshest ingredients to create our homemade traditional Irish classics, fresh salads, and creative specials. Come enjoy our warm, family-friendly atmosphere. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino.
Access to Montana's great backyard is the best part of being a Grizzly. At the University of Montana, our classrooms are the mountain peaks, river valleys, and never-ending plains of the Big Sky Country. We provide students with the hands-on training to protect and enjoy hunting, conservation, and stewardship. UM launches the careers of outdoor leaders so that they can protect our traditions and ensure they are passed down for future generations. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
Why would any business let you use their product and give you 365 days of reassurance? Mattress Firm does because they believe in their mattresses. Save on top brands like Nectar, Tempur-Pedic, Beautyrest, Serta, Stearns & Foster, and others. Mattress Firm carries $149 mattresses all the way up to the luxury Purple Rejuvenate Premier. 0% in payments as low as $39 a month, along with 365 days of reassurance. See why Mattress Firm is Montana's best place to find the sleep you deserve.
Mattress Firm, where it's easy to get a great night's sleep.
ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
Welcome back, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, the only bears that should be in your garbage. Couple of things for you, courtesy of Sportsbet Montana. Sportsbet Montana's been so great to support our pro sports conversations. The Sportsbet Montana has you can bet everything on there, but particularly pro sports is something that's very fun to wager upon. The NBA playoffs continues tonight with a couple games, but also the PGA Championship is coming up as well. So we're going to talk about both of those things. If you want to find out where you can bet, all you have to do is go to Sportsbet Montana online, the Sportsbet Montana website, and just click on where to bet. It's sportsbetmontana.com. And you can find where all the kiosks are located at around the state of Montana. You can also use the Sportsbet Montana app as well. I think that's one of the most handy things they got. So if you're making like a parlay, for example, or you want to pair a couple things together, sometimes it's a little bit tricky. It's just tedious sometimes on the machine. But if you just do it, you can search it on your phone and then make the little parlay, and then you can just hit the QR code. And then you just screenshot the QR code, and then boom, you place it right underneath the kiosk. And that's how I do it. I usually make my bets real quick, then walk in, place it on the kiosk, in and out, make it efficient. They make it easy for you, especially if you use the technology that they help employ. So Sportsbet Montana proud to present our NBA talk, our Stanley Cup playoffs talk, and when Major Championship Golf rolls around, certainly that as well. The 2026 PGA Championship is coming up. The betting favorite, Scotty Scheffler, of course he is, but it's a little bit over 4-1, so not as steep of a favorite as Scotty has been in majors recently. Rory McIlroy is coming off his Masters win. He's at plus 775, so that's almost 8-1 for him. Cam Young, who just won last week at the Truist, he played really, actually 2 weeks ago, excuse me. I think some Jung Lee won at the Truist last week. But Cam Young won recently, and he was in the mix at the Masters as well. He's plus 1250. John Rahm has been playing well. How much does the live help you? I don't know. But he's at plus 1450, as is Bryson DeChambeau. Xander Schauffele caused a little bit of a stir today at a press conference. He was asked about the trees and the rough at this week's venue for the PGA Championship. And he was basically saying just straight up, like the rough is about as hard as you're going to find for a major championship type of course. And then the trees make it even harder. This tournament, by the way, Xander Schauffele, he is the sixth betting favorite at plus 1650. Other guys that are expected to be in the mix include Tommy Fleetwood at plus 2100, Ludwig Oberg at plus 2300, Justin Thomas at plus 2900, and then it tapers off from there. Colin Morikawa is plus 3400, as is Victor Hovland. The PGA Championship is being played at Aronimink Golf Club. This is in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. That's right outside of Philadelphia. It's considered one of the nation's top golf courses. It's currently ranked 78th in the greatest courses in the country by Golf Digest. It's the 44th toughest course, and Golf Week named it a top 50 hardest course as well. It was ranked the number 4 hardest course in America on the PGA Tour, but that was back in 2010. Sounds like they've been preparing for this for quite some time to host this championship, and they've got it, all the way grown out for the roughs and about as hard as it could possibly play. So interested to see where the scores are at this week. I think these guys might be in for it. They might be getting beat up a little bit. You might see some frustrated golfers. You might see some big numbers. I bet you at least one or two of those betting favorite guys are going to take one on the chin and look like the rest of us, shooting in the high 70s, low 80s, instead of in the red numbers. But we'll see. In terms of like what I don't really know how to give you advice on betting golf right now, because I just don't know how you can go bet on anybody but Scotty Scheffler when it comes to these tournaments that aren't at like consistent course. Like the Masters, okay. The Masters, there's some nuance to the betting because who knows the course really well? Who's played really well at the Masters? Rory has always played really well there, even though he's been haunted by demons. But now he's got it off his back. He's won a couple in a row. There's been some other guys that, Justin Rose is always a good one to maybe put a little wager on. Guys have been playing well leading into the Masters is usually a good player to bet on. When it's just these, like I'd never heard of this Aronimink Golf Club. I never heard of this until today. So when it's just sort of like a once-off, I just don't know how you don't bet the number one player in the world. Like Scotty Scheffler should be twice the favorite compared to everybody else in the field, just based on his consistency, how well he's played. I mean, he's just gonna go shoot probably 68 or 69 4 days in a row, and he's gonna be right there between 10 and 12 under. And again, maybe this course beats everybody up, but he's just gonna be right there, I think. And because he has such a small margin for error, such a large margin for error, because he's so consistent, I don't know how you bet against Scotty. Nuanez Now tonight, ESPN Radio. When it comes to the NBA tonight, you got the two series that remain going. The Minnesota Timberwolves play at the San Antonio Spurs. That is a pivotal Game 5 after the T-Wolves stole Game 1 and then gutted it out for a win in Game 4. Some controversy last game. Victor Wembanyama got thrown out. He deserved to get thrown out. That was not controversial. He elbowed Naz Reid square in the throat. So that was justifiable ejection. But the controversy came where a lot of people thought maybe he would get suspended for this game, and he did not. So Wembanyama is available, and the Spurs at home are 10.5-point favorites, which is crazy considering the series has been tied and that Minnesota won in San Antonio in Game 1. But when the Spurs have rolled, they've absolutely rolled. They won by almost 40 in Game 2 the last time they were in San Antonio. So I'm not surprised at the big number. In the Eastern Conference, the other series is also a pivotal Game 5, and it features Detroit hosting Cleveland, trying to bounce back after Donovan Mitchell went nuts on, I guess, last night. Excuse me, that game's tomorrow. I was going to say, I was in this time warp there for a minute. I was like, I watched the Cavs last night. How are they playing in a different city tonight? I'm noticing now that I'm looking at the May 13th day. I'm on the Sportsbet Montana website, so it's not the ESPN where you have to click through the days. Apologies from me. But that game is tomorrow, and I still don't know what to make of that series. It is a pretty much even series, but Mitchell really found it in the second half last night. He scored 39 of his 43 after halftime and helped Cleveland pull even. So, again, I don't know if Detroit's ready. Like, that's one of the key narratives in the NBA every year, and San Antonio sort of falls in that bucket as well, right? So often, like almost always, like the only guy and the only franchise that really didn't have to go through this was Magic Johnson and the Lakers. But the Lakers had gone through it all through the 60s and 70s with Jerry West and Elgin Baylor and those guys coming up short. When Magic Johnson gets to the Lakers in 1980, as a rookie, he's the Finals MVP. They win the championship. He goes on to lead the Lakers to 5 championships in the next 12 years and, solidifies himself as one of the 10 greatest players of all time. Other than that, though, almost everybody's had to take their lumps. Michael Jordan had to take his lumps against the Celtics and the Pistons in the 80s before he got to break through in the 90s. The other outlier, basically, that is Tim Duncan and the San Antonio Spurs, because he came in and won a championship in his first year as well, and they went on to win 5 titles. But LeBron had to go through it forever when he's with the Cavs and then a little bit even with the Heat. You got to lose heartbreaking before you can win big, right? And so often it takes until the superstars and the alpha dogs on the specific teams are in their mid to late 20s. So, the Spurs are knocking on the door of being a real contender, but are they actually a team that could beat the Thunder and win a championship? I'm not sure. The Thunder took their lumps, too, before they turned the corner, and now they've become like the premier, the team to beat in the NBA. The Cavs have sort of taken their lumps already. Like this little core with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, they've been together for a little while. They've seen Darius Garland get traded for James Harden. James Harden's had his lumps over the years as well. So, there's just several other guys that have been a part of this that have sort of gone through it. The Pistons and the Spurs are the two new kids on the block, right? They both won 60-plus games this year. Breakthrough seasons for proud franchises. Both of them sort of resurrections of good franchises as well, right? And this is what shows you, like, when you get the picks in the NBA draft, how much you can turn it around. When you get the number 1 pick, if you use it on Cade Cunningham like Detroit did, or you use it on Victor Wembanyama like the Spurs did, and those guys then become what you thought they were going to become, now look at you. You're one of the best teams in the NBA. I'm just not quite sure the Spurs are ready yet, but I don't know if the heartbreak is going to come in this round or next round. The T-Wolves have also taken their lumps, so maybe they're ready for a breakthrough too. But if I was leaning towards this, I don't have a beat on the Detroit-Cleveland series. I think tonight it is a absolutely, you're not just saying this because this is the cliche that they say about Game 5s. This is a pivotal Game 5 tomorrow night, excuse me, between Detroit and Cleveland. The Spurs deserve to be favored tonight. I think the Spurs are going to take care of business against the T-Wolves, but then I think their heartbreak's going to come next round when they play the Thunder, because they own the Thunder during the regular season. They beat them 4 out of 5 times so far this year, but that's about the only team that's owned the Thunder. And I do think that the Spurs will get through this round, but then probably run into a buzzsaw next round. When it comes to the winner of the Detroit-Cleveland series, I think then that team will also be a pretty good matchup for the Knicks. The Knicks had it rolling right now. They just took apart the 76ers, but they've had a relatively easy run to the conference finals so far. Atlanta's, pretty good. They're okay. They're competitive. Philly was like non-competitive, especially once Embiid was out. They basically just tapped out. So the Knicks are just chilling, waiting to see what else, who emerges and who pops up and who their matchup is. But I just don't think that, I think the champion's going to, I think that's one of the things right now. We talked about household names coming out of the NBA and the varying interest in the NBA. I think there's a lot of people interested in it. I think there's a lot of people that couldn't care less. I wonder if part of it is how predictable it is. I shouldn't say predictable, but if you were to say, like, who did you think were going to be in the conference finals coming into this year? I think a lot of people, most people that followed it, would have said Thunder for sure in the West, Knicks for sure in the East. I think the other choice out of the East would have been Boston, but they sort of just faded to black during the playoffs. Obviously, Jason Tatum's recovery from the injury loomed large, but then his unavailability down the stretch of that series loomed large. I think the other team you probably would have looked at in the East is probably Cleveland. And they haven't necessarily taken the next step compared to where they were last year. They're sort of just the same. So, I don't know. I think that the Knicks were for sure predictable to be in the conference finals out of the East. I think the Thunder were just an absolute slam dunk, book it, write it in permanent ink out of the West. I think some people thought the Lakers might be able to get there because of Luka Doncic, but then his injury certainly loomed large for L.A. Denver is in a state of disarray. It's supposed to be them that's in the conference, that's threatening in the conference finals with the Thunder, but they got beat up by the T-Wolves for the second year in a row. The T-Wolves have been to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years, so maybe we should expect them to be there with the Thunder. And now the Spurs are sort of the upstart, but they have this transcendent talent in Victor Wembanyama. So I don't know. I don't know if it's too predictable or not, but I certainly enjoy watching it. I'm excited for the game tonight. We usually do this during the 4 o'clock hour, but I just totally blew through it. But we got to give you an opportunity. Tag Tuesday, probably presented by Tag Larry Deli. Thanks to everybody that texted in your questions, comments, concerns, and talking points. Those will get you entered in to win Tag. We'll give you one last shot. 406-888-1029. You want a $25 gift card to Tag Larry Deli. Best sandwiches you're going to find in the state of Montana. They also have an awesome Italian-style market with olive oils, pastas, pasta sauces. 2 locations in the Garden City. We got $25 for you to Tag. 406-888-1029. One last shot. Text us and let us know what you want us to talk about here as we enter the summer months. We will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Samuel Kim inside the FCS. Bobby Kennedy, the head coach of the Montana Grizzlies, and whatever else we get to. See you then. Nuanez